From the BR Proud Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Jesse Gunkel with the very latest on Delta. We had some minor changes as of the 10 p.m. advisory out there. We're going to dig into it in just a second. The good news is it is slightly weaker out there. As you see, the winds have dropped to 130 miles per hour, but don't let that fool you because that is still a Category 4 hurricane. As you see, it continues to move west-northwest at 16 miles per hour and is expected to make landfall on the northern tip of the Yucatan Peninsula, somewhere between Cancun and Cozumel. And again, it could be a catastrophic storm. Again, we're talking some very dangerous and life-threatening storm surge and some very heavy rainfall, and obviously those very strong winds in place. And as you see here, now it's about 135 miles east-southeast of Cozumel, and it's currently moving towards the west-northwest at 16. So it's still kind of moving along at a pretty steady pace. You can see some of those outer bands also reaching all the way to the country of Cuba. Now here's the overall story. I'm going to zoom back a little bit and kind of step back. You'll see Category 4 landfall sometime tonight, probably or at least early tomorrow morning, maybe between midnight and 7 a.m. As you see, by Wednesday, it's back into the waters of the Gulf of Mexico. And here's the story. With the land interaction and with a little bit of upwelling because of Gamma, you got to remember it was floating around the southern Gulf for a while. Again, some cooler waters in place. The system kind of weakened a little bit, down to a Category 3, I see, but still, that's still a major hurricane. Point that out. And then it is expected to ramp up again, re-strengthen a little bit as it enters the central Gulf and more so the western side, because again, there are some warmer waters still out there. Again, the one area that wasn't impacted by Laura and some of these other storms, Sally and obviously Gamma. So again, there is that possibility we could reach Category 4 by the time we move into Friday, early morning, Category 4. By the time we get to Friday, it's going to weaken a little bit, not much. It's going to run into some wind shear and some cooler waters near the coast and then drive inland. And as you see here, that's the concerning part. Could still be a major hurricane. I doubt it's still going to be a major, but at least a Category 2 possible as it pushes right past the Baton Rouge area, maybe a Category 1. I'm seeing some wind gusts maybe greater than 100 miles per hour. Not sustained, but a gust or two out there. Obviously, a lot of those stronger winds and most of the impacts are going to be just along the coastline. But with potential to see very strong tropical storm force winds, hurricane force winds for maybe a 12 to 18 hour period, widespread power outages are definitely going to be an issue. And the other concerning part is this is going to happen overnight. You can see here we're talking late Friday, probably moving into early Saturday. And again, the combination of darkness with power outages, again, never a good situation. And then the system will eventually move northbound, probably just around Jackson, Mississippi, down to about a tropical storm, and then quickly racing out of here. So at least it should be moving, and it's not going to stall out. You can see current track models, again, pretty consistent as it makes its way right across the Yucatan Peninsula. Again, not a lot of variation, but it starts to spread a little bit. So there still is some wiggle room as the system moves a little bit forward. However, again, the trend recently has been just a hair back towards the east, so a little bit closer to us. And if that's the case, we're going to be pretty close to the eye. That means the strongest winds and the greatest impacts. And again, as you see here with, again, just the latest information, you can see that the European goes a hair to the west, a little bit closer to Lake Charles. Obviously, that's a little bit concerning. The current path of Laura, still many people putting pieces back together in that area. Now, also, it should move along quickly. I do want to show you the next model, and you'll see this is our GFS. This is the American, and this one takes it a little bit further east. You can see the eye, or the center of the system, putting itself directly over the capital area, or at least the Chafalaya Basin, and moving into Vermilion Bay and around St. Mary Parish, up through Assumption, Iberville. We're talking Ascension Parish, a lot of those parishes down towards Terrebonne. Yeah, you guys could be seeing some of the biggest impacts with this system driving through, as this system indicates as a hurricane. Now, the chance for tropical storm force winds, you see here, we're pretty much in the likely category for that. It's very high along the coast. That's at about 100% between Morgan City and New Iberia and really Marsh Island. Then you see here the chance for hurricane force winds. Well, the probability continues to climb that we've got pretty good odds here, at least 40 to 50% that we get a hurricane gust or two, especially on the western side of the Mississippi River. So Addis, Bruley, Plaquemine, Pierre Part could see some very strong winds out there. Just want to show you some gusts out there. And I also want to point out this is where it gets a little bit interesting, because they're expecting this system to not only grow in size, because currently it's only a compact system with hurricane force winds extending only 30 miles from the center, tropical storm force winds at about 105. So again, that's relatively small. However, you can see the hurricane force winds kind of extend much further as the system grows in size. The wind field gets much larger in the central Gulf, and yes, we could even see tropical storm force winds extending into maybe Mississippi and Alabama if the system gets that large. So again, we're talking a large wind field. We're talking a pretty decent wall of water moving towards our coastline. It means the impacts are going to be far-reaching. It also means that we need to kind of prepare for all scenarios: heavy rainfall, flash flooding, large storm surge, and some very strong winds all south of the capital area. And you can see here, we're talking maybe by early Saturday morning around 1 o'clock, some wind gusts up to about 90 miles per hour, maybe 80 miles. Again, maybe a little bit more accurate with the system as it drives through the area. And then it should start to weaken a little bit, just again showing you another model out there. And this one only extends, I think, 72 hours out, so it kind of cuts off on the bottom of the screen, but you can see that the likelihood is pretty good that we will be seeing some pretty decent winds. Even as early as midday on Friday, we could have some gusts at about 40 miles per hour. So again, just think about that. You know, again, the winds are, it's going to get very breezy starting out late on Thursday, and the winds will quickly increase as we make our way into the day on Friday. And then obviously that's when we gear up for landfall Friday night, moving into early on Saturday. So again, there are a couple features out here that I do want to point out, and the reason I'm showing you is because, first of all, the ridge has been dominating. You can kind of see it backing in here. It's just a swirl here. It's been driving the system in a westerly direction. This is what's left over from Gamma, and that kind of maybe kind of shifting the system a hair back towards the east a little bit. But I do want to point out there's a big deep trough here. What that means is basically our next cold front is digging down towards Louisiana. That's not going to arrive here until early next week. But what's going to happen ahead of that cold front is that we are going to see a little bit of wind shear. You can kind of see this dry air and how these clouds are kind of getting stripped up towards the northeast. Well, that's going to continue to happen near the coastline. All right, I want to point out near the coastline. That's why it's not happening here in the central Gulf. That's why we see the intensification. But closer to the coast, expect it to run into some cooler waters because of recent cold fronts. And we're going to run into that wind shear that's going to kind of help to kind of quickly keep this system from intensifying near landfall. It's not going to be like Sally. It's not going to be like Laura where it gets stronger going inland. This one should actually weaken. However, again, that's not going to mean much because the system is already going to be pushing in pretty quickly. So here's your story moving forward. Just keep an eye on the rain estimates. And again, this I think is going to vary a little bit depending on the size and when those outer bands reach. But here are the early estimates, about 6 to 10. And we're talking around Acadiana, 4 to 6 for much of the viewing area here, and then 2 to 4 for New Orleans. Obviously, those amounts could be much higher in localized locations. Got to see where those actual rain bands really begin to set up, because again, that's going to be key, because you could easily see 2 to 3 inches of rain in some locations, and yeah, that, you know how quickly that adds up. So we're going to watch the rivers and streams. Luckily, we've been under a dry couple weeks right now, so the water levels are low for the Amite River Basin. So we're good now, but again, we'll watch the water levels closely because, again, we just need to see the rain totals right now. But at least this system is moving, and we're not going to get those astronomical amounts of 25+ inches of rainfall. This should be more in that 4 to 6, probably 6 to 10, and locally some higher amounts. And just to give you a little bit of timing, tomorrow should be relatively dry, just a little bit of cloud cover. You've got plenty of time to put away all that unsecured furniture around your house. Make sure you secure everything that needs to be secured. Cut down those final tree limbs, clear those gutters, clean those drainage ditches just in case. Thursday, some of those outer bands should be getting very close to the coastline. A little bit of rain, getting breezy out there, good mixture of clouds. And then finally on Friday, conditions quickly go downhill And as you see, that storm should be making landfall late Friday into early Saturday. Even the possibility of some lingering showers moving into Sunday before we move into a drier pattern. So big takeaway, stay alert. Obviously, a lot's going to change. We are starting to kind of get more of a better idea as to landfall. Again, it could be a few miles to the west, could be still a few more miles to the east. It's not set in stone at this point quite yet. We need to see what happens as the system moves back into the Gulf of Mexico. Does it wiggle a little bit to the east or west? How strong does it get before moving back inland? So again, a lot to kind of watch in the coming days, but stay alert. Make sure you download our free app. It has all the information you need, all the latest alerts, where the sandbag locations are, really just all the important stuff at the tip of your finger, or at the tip of your fingers. Also, we're going to have more social media updates. We're going to have more updates for our early morning newscast and as we get closer to the system. So tune in. If you have any questions, concerns, you can always email me or send me a link on Facebook. I'm happy to answer whatever questions you may have if you're really concerned. But in the meantime, again, just make sure you go through those necessary precautions and stay alert, stay vigilant, and be ready to act if necessary. Thanks for joining this evening.